Be realistic and honorable about it with yourself. And finally, after the divorce, you give yourself enough time. Harding's rule of thumb is 3 years before you are fit to be remarried. Period. Cut and dry. Because your head is messed up because of the amount of pain received and the amount of pain dispersed. It is a rare couple that can break that rule and function beyond 5 years. So what Jesus is talking about is not Harding's rule, but the fact of recognition that if there's going to be life on the other side of divorce and remarriage, it will have to be with a full coming to terms of your participation both in the divorce and also your openness and recognition that you're not marrying your ex-husband or ex-wife, which often happens, that the person you are now in love with and hope to build a future with is a new soul, an independent soul, a person of his or her own integrity and honor, and not to be lumped with the ex or dumped on as if he or she were the ex. Pretty simple? Pretty basic? Okay, good. That's why I didn't do anything more with that, because it could take longer. You had that on. Oh. All right then. Well, let's talk a little bit now for a couple minutes about Deuteronomy. We had been talking about the Old Testament for the last 3 weeks, the prophets. Deuteronomy is Moses' last speech while he's on Mount Nebo. He can see the promised land, and it is just Moses, Caleb, and Joshua who are the last 3 of the people who have lived through the 40-year desert journey. They're the only 3 left who have made it out of Egypt to the promised land, the Jordan River. And Moses himself will die and never enter the promised land. But the people he's talking to are the children and grandchildren of the ones who came out of the promised land. And they have learned a little bit from their folks, obviously, and from the communal activities in that 40 years. But Moses wants to lay it out for them real simple. And that's what he does here. He says, here you go, guys. Every day of your life, you are at a crossroads, and you have 2 choices. You can either choose death, or you can choose life. There is no in between. You're going to choose death or choose life. And in the course of that conversation, when he talks about choosing life, the blessings, blessing isn't just a short-term thing, but blessing is the Bible way of talking about life expanding and flourishing in all ways. Essentially, it's what Jesus does on the cross, right? His arms are forced open. They're out there. He's embracing life. All of it. Both the present physical existence and eternity. Embracing it all. And that is what Moses is saying to the children and grandchildren of the men and women who came out of Israel. That as they enter a new future, that is their calling as people of God. And that is the way they know that God is going to continue to love them, because he will respond to that embrace of choosing life. The converse, of course, is the curse. And that means a deprivation of blessing. It means being feeble. And not physically feeble, but just feeble in your thinking about life, period. Is your life interesting? Is the world interesting? Aggravating is interesting. And never forget that. If it gets your blood racing, that means you're paying attention. And if you're participating, you're paying attention. If you are backed away to the point when your life has gotten very, very small and tiny and you don't care, that is the cursing that goes with it. But keep in mind, either the curse or the bless is your choosing. God offers you his way of blessing, and you can take that way, or you can take the other way. And that is what he offers the young people as they're on the brink of entering the promised land. One of the ways that Moses talks about it in Deuteronomy and a couple of the other books prior to that is with the idea of a command. You know the 10 Commandments. Let me put it this way. You know at least 4 of the 10 Commandments. And that will be better than most of the Christian American population. If you can do 4 or better, you're all right. Because most of the American Christian population can't even do 4. The reason, again, I suspect is in part because it becomes inculcated, into our lives to the point where we don't necessarily have to give voice to it, but it's just instinctively there for us. But in any case, the commands which Moses had given people were not commands to make their life small, but they were boundaries that allowed a lot of elbow room for freedom of choosing. And that's why he says, on this day, choose life. Because if you're choosing life, then all those commandments are very broadening and give you a lot of elbow room to make your choices. And that is the kind of thing that he's talking about with the words of the different commands, 10 Commandments and others. What's the first command in the Bible? It is Genesis 1:28. Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and take your choice. Subdue it, have dominion over it, or take care of it. There are 3 options on that particular Hebrew word. We moderns have tried to use the word dominion, dominate, and you can see the results of that. We've done a lovely job. But that's the very first command. And from there, but that's also freeing, because what it does, it assumes a level of responsibility as to how you're going to subdue or care for the earth. That's our responsibility. So you have a lot of freedom in there to do that. And that is how Deuteronomy and Moses presents the love of God to the people at the gateway to the Jordan River. So, for you and I, one of the points that Jesus makes and Moses really pushes on is that a lot of the time our lives are a fork in the road. And you can take the fork that is going to be a blessing where your life opens up and is broadened in all kinds of ways, or whether your life is diminished and you get feeble, both in your thinking, your ability to live. But in any case, the word that's used for love by Moses in Deuteronomy is never an emotion. And that you need to know too. To love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind is to choose life. And therefore to choose the broadening and the flourishing of your life. And then there are people around you, of course. That's the way in which God and Jesus, of course, envisioned it and taught it. That the promise we have from God is that very promise of a life which is flourishing, that is full of love, that is hopeful. It's very good news.